what we are going to do, though, is go have a look at the working group podcast from last night, because there were some really interesting people on it. And I don't just mean you guys that were chatting. I mean the actual guests on there as well. First clip we're going to watch tonight, I've got like 5 or 6 clips, but I've highlighted the 3 best ones, and we'll just do those. Is they were talking about the cancer drugs, conversations around the cancer drugs, the lies around the cancer drugs, and that's where the conversation starts.
I've been commenting on politics for 30 years, and I have never in my life witnessed something so cruel and vile as promising cancer patients their life-saving drugs and then not funding them. No matter left or right, no one should promise dying people hope and then break that promise. National had $2.9 billion for landlord tax cuts, but not $280 million to fund cancer drugs they promised. Thoughts?
Cynical. Like, why would you commit to that during an election, knowing you know how Pharmac works?
So Barbara Edmonds speaking now, for people who aren't aware of it, and this is Simon Court here in the bottom of the screen. He's the ACT MP and part of government, and of course Shane DePoe.
And then not deliver it in the first budget. You know, I've spoken to some of the advocate groups, patient advocate groups. They are mad. And, you know, for them, it's life or death. I mean, I saw a comment.
Literally.
Well, it is. And I saw a comment from someone saying, well, at least when they drive me to the crematorium, there won't be any potholes.
Richard.
Oh!
Yeah.
Sweet Jesus. Follow-up question. The richest 40% of New Zealand got 64% of the tax cuts, while the poorest beneficiary families got nothing at all. How on earth is this anything other than a slap in the face to Kiwi egalitarianism?
Oh, it's not unsurprising to me, right, that this is what this government, they're always going to look after their mates, or they're always going to look after the top end of town, and yet benefits have been changed with indexation. We know that some are going to be losing out, about 9,000 more will lose more money under this than actually those that will get the full $250 that was promised. But it's just a cynical budget, and it's quite ironic that the Minister of Finance talks about this being a Goldilocks budget. She's taken on that commentary from other media.
Yeah, and this is the bit we were talking about earlier, Chewy, when people start going through what the budget actually ended up being.
Well, what happened in that story? The 3 bears scared her away.
Simon, the right went on and 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 on about Grant Robertson borrowing. Yet your government's first budget borrowed more than Grant ever did annually. How can Small Government Act support that borrowing? Shouldn't you all resign immediately from the government on principle?
Well,
Please.
ACT has been a positive influence. We've saved a lot of money. You look at portfolios like Karen Shaw's Oranga Tamariki.
So Simon Court was well out of his depth in this conversation. But
He looks like he's lost his shell somewhere.
Where she's reprioritised hundreds of millions of dollars from the back office to frontline services. You think about the savings that Brooke van Velden has found in her internal affairs and other portfolios, over $500 million. It's been reprioritised or sent back to the centre. But I just want to come back to something that Barbara said. Barbara's Labor government, in which she was a minister, presided over the largest transfer of wealth to the property-owning class of any government in New Zealand's history, with that phenomenal money-printing operation, hosing money out the door, inflation-generating activity, just blowing money on stuff that never got delivered, like bike bridges and all kinds of crazy stuff. If there's one thing this government won't do, we will not be transferring wealth from those who are starting off in life to the property-owning.
that's called red meat to Shane DePoe. What he's saying is called a red meat.
What the fuck position is this? Get him, Shane!
Yeah, we'll let Shane get him, eh?
Us in the way that the former Labor government did.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Follow-up question. When Labor borrowed, it was to save New Zealand from a once-in-a-century pandemic. When the right borrow, it's for fucking tax cuts for their rich mates. Aren't you risking an enormous backlash once the electorate works that out?
$60 billion borrowed for COVID. About $40 billion, we don't know what it was borrowed for and where it went. But I tell you what, we never got a bike bridge over Auckland Harbour. Thank goodness. There's a whole lot of other stuff that money got wasted on, hundreds of millions of dollars for an Auckland Light Rail project, that if they'd actually commissioned the Canadians who came here and offered to build it as an unsolicited bid, it would be half built by the time the election came along. You'd have a light rail.
Your government has just spent millions of dollars on some sort of a investigationary attempt in terms of Wellington. But here is the thing: to say that this this current government, isn't transferring wealth when they're paying people like me, the landlords, $2.9 billion. And if we think for 1 minute that this will lead to less rent or lower rent, it's not happening that way. Rents are going up steadily higher than it has at any other time. This has enriched the landlord class in New Zealand. And I'll tell you what, I think middle New Zealand, particularly those wobbly national voters, have woken up to this.
And you're seeing that in the latest poll today.
Latest poll, but also when you just getting out there and having a kōrero on the street, Martin.
There you go. Number one, Chewy. Anything you want to add into that? See, Shane pretty knocked. I mean, actually, to be honest, what it feels like is Simon Court has got Axe talking points from about a month ago, but hasn't had any kind of training or thought on how to come against him. To say that we're not going to be transferring wealth like the last lot did, I mean, seriously?
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Look, I commented on one of the great successes of David Seymour was keeping the media away from his MPs in the past. It was just the David Seymour show.
Yeah, before the
only
election.
talk to David Seymour. Maybe we open it up a little bit to Brooke Van Velden. But please don't talk to any of my other dudes because they're all crazy. And this is just a woeful performance.
Yeah.
It is. I couldn't even say if he believes it.
No.
Like there's no passion there. There's no facts there. It's like he's bringing up the cycle bridge of some fucking thing. You know, it's at least we're not transferring wealth is hilarious.
Yeah, it's the best line. Let's have a look at the next clip.
we had savings. We had savings. Then why are you borrowing?
Yeah, this is the thing, borrowing so much more. There was a question that was sort of a round table asked about what parties are at risk because of this budget. So, is this going to do anything bad? Is there anybody who's at risk because of this budget? And here is the answer to that question.
Follow-up question, Shane. Follow-up
Yes,
question.
sure.
Pensioners gained a couple of bucks each week.
Nah.
They are Winston's electorate. Is
yes.
New Zealand first at risk with this budget?
Absolutely. There are three parties that are at risk here. Your party, because you're borrowing $13 billion more. There'd be a lot of people in your party, including your voice, the taxpayer union, that are really pissed off with you.
They're pissed off. Taxpayers union pretty pissed
Then the
off.
National
It took
Party
them
said,
24 hours to figure it out.
Then the National Party said $250. No, less than 3,000 people get, families get, and then
The superannuitants.
Superannuitants, but let's have a look at it. They didn't get $2.50 because it wasn't adjusted in terms of inflation.
So they've actually
on
gone
April
backwards.
the 1st. But what's happened? Landlords like me have got more money, and our poor and our older folks have got less money. Thank heavens for the winter energy supplements. Or if it wasn't for the winter energy supplements, it would be a real winter of discontent for our superannuitants.
Basically, Shane DePoe is saying all three of the government parties are in danger because of this government for different reasons. Because ACT supporters don't want, if they're honest actors in the ACT supporters party, they don't want to see $14 billion worth of borrowing. Winston's throwing the elderly under the bus, and National's being dragged to the far right by these two more superior politicians, and they're worried about penis police and and migration issues again. So you go at it. So I've got one more clip, but you go for it.
Oh, look, I don't think I really have anything more to add there. We've got a couple of comments in the chat. Labor did this, Labor did that. Yes. Yeah.
They're not the government.
Yeah, they're not the government, and they should be criticised on the merits of what they did at the time. But what we're doing is talking about what's happening now, which is
and look,
you can litigate the past.
I'm over that.
Labor's mistakes we've spoken about. There's a reason that they're not part of the government anymore. But that doesn't mean that these guys get a fucking pass. We've talked at length about the problems that successive governments of multiple colours have left on the table that have become just this unbearable elephant in the room that we can't solve. But the comparison that is being mentioned is Labour bad because borrow money, big bad.
Yeah.
National sweeps in, borrows an enormous amount of money as well. It's bullshit,
in fact,
and they should be roasted for it.
Yeah. And look, I'm completely over this, but Labour. I mean, like, to be honest, you guys know I don't really engage on Twitter. I sent out a few replies today, but I don't really engage on Twitter. And when I do, like there's a guy that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember his name. And, I keep saying, I asked them, worst economy, okay, give me some metrics. They never do. The reality is, like, people are talking about the $1 million consultation fee that this government's paying to two consultants about a tunnel under Wellington that's never going to happen, if they've been told will never happen.
Laughable tunnel.
And so the response through a whole bunch of social medias to us pointing that out has been, yeah, but like Labour, $50 million cycleway they never built. It's like, well, so what? There's two things, right? The first is that we're holding National to the standard they set for Labour, and they set consultants bad. So if what we're calling out is the hypocrisy of National based on their standards for Labour. If you want to go and find the hypocrisy of Labour talking about we won't build cycleways and then trying to build a cycleway, sure, you'll have a valid point. But it's not the argument to say, but Labour did bad things. We're saying this government is breaking promises and being hypocrites based on the standard they set for the previous government. I'm not going any further than that. Yes, Labour was shithouse. I didn't vote for them. They lost a huge advantage they had with the majority, and they should have done better. They didn't. Whoop-de-doo. Yes, Labour bad at times. Fine. You can actually take that and run with it. It doesn't change the idea that so what you're saying is because Labour did something wrong, National's allowed to do something wrong. Because that's the only argument you're actually going with.
The fuck.
And it doesn't, and I'm over it. I'm just pretty much not going to engage with that anymore, because it's like, no, I don't care about what did happen, because it's gone. Yes, you're right. Okay, I give it to you. You're right. Labour bad $50 million cycleway. Right, done. You're correct. Now, let's talk about National bad hypocrite $1 million consultants, because that's the topic I want to talk about.
Yeah, because we're quite happy to criticise our side when they fuck up.
Of course.
And then it seems that people that oppose us wave our hands away, but Labour. It's like, hold your own team to things that you thought were important when it was Labour doing it.
Yep.
Because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're holding our team to the same standards. Like, we have massive problems in this country. It's like your average person's wage is creeping up at a rate that is slower than the rate of inflation, yet the fucking Mowbray guy from Zuru Toys is now our richest person, and that seems to be celebrated, that he turbocharges his income to the point where he can give away almost what was it, $350 million donation to National and $150 million donation to ACT. Fuck, that's right. Can you not see?
Was
like,
that,
even if
did he get, that's $500 million? Did he give them $500 million?
I will find it. I'm sure I read it, because
maybe it was 35
Herald
million?
story, Rich crowing about the fact that the man from the New Zealand company Zuru was now New Zealand's richest man, knocking off Graham Hart.
Mm.
Now, if you're on the right and you believe that things should be fair, how can you look at those guys and go, "Yep, that's fine. That's fine. They're absolutely not fucking the democratic process. It is fine that their shit gets turbocharged, and the vast majority of this country is putting things back out of their supermarket trolley because they can't afford it this week. That shit's fucked."
Yeah.
I want intellectual honesty from people that might disagree with me.
Yeah. Yep. All right. While you go and do your research on $350 million, I'm going to play the last clip. The last clip starts off with them talking about do the guests, and I think he's talking to Shane here, think that the next few years are going to be good for us economically or bad for us, safe or scary. It's going to be a good return or get. And then they go into talking about national borrowing and what's going to happen next.
Of course, Lisa. Let's look at the real indicators. Again, Simon, facts are important. Inflation, core inflation is sticking around.
Yeah.
interest rates.
OCR looks like it's going to go up.
Yep, it's been revised for another quarter.
It's very possible that we could get an economic international downgrade.
Downgrade by Fitch.
Yep, that's very possible. But here's the biggie. Here is the biggie. 29,000 more people unemployed, and that is a pretty conservative guess.
Wasn't it Nicola Willis or was it Erica Stanford who said, just get a job? I mean, if you want more money than being on a benefit, just get a job. You know, sounds easy when you say it, just as simply as that.
All those indicators tell me that it's going to be a bleak year, not only for this government, but for New Zealanders. And you know what? What's the trick next year? What are they going to borrow? Another $15 billion? I don't know what else they've
Certainly
got.
not borrowing money to waste like the previous government did.
But you're borrowing it for tax cuts. You're borrowing it for tax cuts.
Well, let's be clear.
Do you
Let's
accept
be
that you're
clear.
borrowing it for tax
So
cuts?
the last
Absolutely
6
not.
months
Let's
we
be
have
clear
seen a
what-
strong economic slowdown because of a handbrake put on by this government around house
Outrageous.
builds, around school builds. No, you can have a look at some of the economists what they're saying over the last 6 months, which is there has been an
Your
economic
government
slowdown
tanked
because of the
economy,
construction.
borrowed $100 billion,
So
led
again,
to the most
Simon,
outrageous inflation.
you're borrowing
the
more.
Reserve Bank.
So,
but
so
Simon,
let's
hang
talk
on.
about inflation
Hang on.
because your government has said
Oh, that's such a good line, but you're borrowing more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing that he is still in 2024 sitting there pretending that COVID wasn't a global thing.
Yeah.
This is something I said before, where they bring up interest rates and that sort of thing. They believe that everything that happens in New Zealand is only affected by things that happened in New Zealand. That a country that is based on import and export, somehow inflation is only Labor's fault. When I talk about intellectual honesty, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Is this a dumb guy or a smart guy trying to be dumb?
Yeah, well, it gets dumber. So strap in.
Well, strap in.
Economy
Construction.
borrowed $100 billion,
So
led
again,
to the most
Simon,
outrageous inflation.
You're borrowing
the
more.
Reserve Bank.
So-
But Simon, you're
So
jack
let's
up
talk about inflation
rates.
because your government has said you've got a
Interest
sharp
rates.
focus on inflation. The three things that are making inflation persistent in New Zealand, so non-tradable inflation, is
In case people don't know, she's the finance spokesperson for Labor as well.
insurance
Sounds like it.
premiums,
And they keep going up, right?
council rates,
Yep.
and rents.
Yeah.
What was one of the very first things that this government did when they came in? They removed the affordable water reforms. Hence, councils had no plan other than through their long-term plans. A number of them are getting signed off now
No one believed
to
that would save
increase
money.
their rates.
$1.2 billion
You were the only
blown
one
and
that
not a
didn't
single
believe. You were
pipe
one of the
fixed.
few people that believed that didn't. But actually, if you look at Auckland, the deal for Auckland, the rates increase is 7%. It should have been 3% under the affordable water
Hamilton,
reforms.
yeah.
And then you
Hamilton's
look at
19%.
rents. Again, the budget documents, because it's quite clear you haven't read them.
Kiwis have
Rents are
longer memories
rising.
than that, Barbara.
Rents are
1.2
rising.
billion on 3 waters.
Rents
That's
are
what Labor
rising.
spent. Not a single
Simon,
pipe
can I-
was
Again,
built.
have a
We're
look
actually
at
going
all
to
the-
get stuff built.
Yeah, Simon, can I ask you a question? If your government is so great and Labor government is so shite, why has the centre right dropped by 3 members of Parliament in the latest poll? Why aren't your numbers going up? You're not even halfway to your.
I'm not so much into this part of the conversation. Poll schmoles, but yeah.
Your leader, the leader of the New Zealand First, and the Prime Minister, why are their numbers tanked only 7 months into the election cycle? This is unprecedented, Simon.
Kiwis
Surely you must be
are
concerned about
Six
hurting,
months.
Shane. They are hurting. 3 years of tax and spend, lockdowns in Auckland that went on and on and on, kids kept out of school, failing services,
And now look at
wrecked
what's happening.
roads.
You've changed the
Kiwis are
guidelines for
hurting.
schools
Kiwis
and
are hurting. We're 6
classrooms are
months.
closing.
Barbara, let me.
Classrooms are closing.
Barbara, give me a chance.
But you're
Kiwis are
saying
hurting.
classrooms.
Kiwis are hurting. And we totally appreciate that. Polls will bounce around. We have a big job
They
to
don't?
do to turn this country around. We are in turnaround mode. We have to find the money from private and institutional investors to build the infrastructure that taxpayers won't be able to afford to pay up
So
front.
privatisation.
Okay? We're going to
Here
have
we
to
go.
bring in
Right
private
here.
institutional capital. Kiwis will
More
be
foreign
paying
investment?
tolls,
A lot more foreign
investment and infrastructure.
Good
They
luck
will be
getting that
paying
part-
tolls.
I think he's saying the quiet part out loud here, Chewy. I don't know if it's just you, but it sounds like he's saying saying the quiet part out loud. Private investment and foreign investment sounds like it's on the way in this government.
More
Be
foreign
paying
investment,
tolls,
a lot more
foreign
things.
investment and infrastructure.
Good
They
luck
will be
getting that
paying
pa-
tolls to drive on the roads.
Simon.
They'll be paying congestion charges in
Yeah.
Auckland. We're going to be paying more for infrastructure. We're going to have better infrastructure that's
See-
going to improve productivity.
So user pays.
All of these things.
Martin.
We need the benefits. The people who get the benefits, Martin, should pay for the services. Well, I've got a water meter in Auckland. I go to places around New Zealand. I would never have water meters. You know, we've had water meters in Auckland since 1996. We actually have the lowest usage per household of any city in New Zealand, and that's because we're metered and we pay a bill every month. It is possible to solve these problems. It doesn't all come back to, geez, we need to tax people more and cut the cake into smaller and smaller slices. Shane, Barbara, you've tried that. You've tried that for far too long.
No, we
We're
didn't
trying
actually.
something-
No,
we
we
did
did
not.
not.
We
That's
should
where
have
we fell.
taxed the
Martin,
rich, but we
Martin,
didn't.
can I just quickly say
Quickly,
this?
comes back to that.
This is the problem
Yeah.
that Simon and this coalition of government have got. They got the neoliberals in terms of Simon and his leader David Seymour. Then they've got the economic nationalists. Winston Peters spent 40 years of his life going to every single town hall railing against foreign
Neoliberal agenda,
investment
yeah.
and the neoliberal agenda, and it will be the end of this government sooner rather than later.
And there you go. So ironically, Chewy, what Shane DePoe is saying there without saying there is that this handbrake that Winston Peters promised to be might actually be a handbrake that ends up ending this government. If he's not into foreign investment, and if that's what they want to do, he's not going to let it. He already stopped the international home buyers tax. So this, I know Bombers predicted that within months of them swapping over deputy prime ministers, it's going to be all over. But he's not the only one talking about there are ructions ahead, my friend.
It's always foreign investment, isn't it? It's always foreign companies coming in to do these programs because little old New Zealand, we couldn't possibly do it. We never did, never could. Like it's just such small, petty thinking from ACT, and that man that looks like he used to be a turtle but got his shell stuck under a door frame or something. Please put him in front of the media more, because what a bloodbath.